Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice radio. So today, I'm here to share with you some very exciting news, ladies and gentlemen. You see, we have some information about the second Tag Team GX, which is going to be coming out. Now, I say we, I do mean PokeBeach. What they've gone and done is they have found a listing for some sleeves, which are officially named Gengar and Mimikyu Tag Team GX. Now, generally speaking, when stuff is released in Japan, they have sleeves that match it. But they're literally called Gengar and Mimikyu Tag Team GX. So this isn't maybe there'll be a Gengar and Mimikyu Tag Team GX. This is there is going to be a Gengar and Mimikyu Tag Team GX. Now, given that PokeBeach have already reported the news, why am I here? Well, I think I've got some predictions I can share and some things that I can tell you that make sense. So first things first, this is going to be a Psychic type GX. It's gonna have a weakness to darkness. The only one we've seen so far, in terms of Tag Team GXs, is Pikachu and Zekrom GX. Both of which are Lightning type, so the card gets printed with Lightning type, and with a weakness to fighting, which is shared by both the Lightning type Pokemon. Now, Gengar has two typings. It is a Ghost Poison Pokemon, both of which are Psychic type in the trading card game. Ergo, it's basically got to be a Psychic type. Now, Mimikyu is a Ghost Fairy, which means it could potentially be a Psychic type or a Fairy type in the trading card game. And we know that in Lost Thunder, we are getting a Fairy type Mimikyu. So that's nice. But this is going to be a Psychic card. The reason it's going to be a Psychic card is because Pikachu and Zekrom clearly are two Lightning Pokemon being a Lightning card. That's going to be the same thing here. Similarly, it seems like they're all going to have one weakness, so they're going to be weak to darkness. Now, I know that some of you might look at it and go, well, hang on a second. Mimikyu GX doesn't have a weakness. And actually, we've had two different Mimikyu, both of which are Psychic type, which didn't have weakness. Why do you think this is suddenly going to have a weakness? Because it's a Tag Team GX card? Because it's an over-the-top good card, which gives up free prizes? That's how good it is? There is absolutely no way we get a Tag Team GX card with no weakness. It's just not going to happen. Plus, in the history of the Pokemon trading card game, there has never been a Gengar card which has not had a weakness. They certainly aren't going to start now. So I know there's never been a Mimikyu card that does have a weakness. Well, there was the Psychic type GX that got released in Japan, but it never really got released outside Japan, although it did see play in Japan. But even so, that's literally the only one. It's going to have a weakness to darkness. Now, in terms of HP, we don't really know what to expect here. The only thing we've got is Pikachu and Zekrom, and I think it's fair to say that, generally speaking, Zekrom is on the high end of HP, but Pikachu's on the low end. And similarly, Gengar tends to have moderately high HP, as a Stage 2 especially, but Mimikyu tends to be on the low end of HP, like the Mimikyu GX, which is at 170, which other than Marshadow, is as low as basic GXs get. So it's probably going to be around the same. But one of the more interesting things we learn about this revelation that this card is coming is that it's not just basic Pokemon. Now, if I remember correctly, and I'm sure I do here, they did tell us, the Pokemon Company, that all of these Tag Team GXs are going to be basic Pokemon. And it'd be super weird if they weren't, because then would you have a Tag Team Basic? And then would that give up one prize or more? That would be weird. So they're all going to be basic. And I assumed that that meant all the Pokemon featured on them were going to be basic, given that we've got Zekrom and Pikachu. But no, ladies and gentlemen. we've got a Stage 2 Gengar and a basic Mimikyu. So again, I don't have a huge amount of information to go on here, but I feel fairly confident that at least one will be a basic. So I don't think we're going to see any Tag Team GXs, which are 2 Stage 2s or 2 Stage 1s or a Stage 2 and a Stage 1 or anything like that. But I do think it is fair to say we are going to see more of these that have non-basics, but I think it's fair to say they're all going to have basics. The other thing to notice here is they are going hard on fan favourites. The first one is Pikachu, full-on fan favourite. And then the second one, you've got Mimikyu, who's a full-on fan favourite, paired with Gengar, who is a full-on fan favourite here. So expect to see a Charizard GX, Tag Team GX with Charizard and another, sooner rather than later. They could go for a Charmander, but I think it's safe to say we're going to get a Charizard. So back to Gengar and Mimikyu then. It's safe to say it's going to have somewhere around 240 HP. It's going to be a Psychic type. It's going to have a weakness to Darkness. And just looking at that for a second, that is going to make this a very balanced card. Because Zoroark is definitely going to still see a huge amount of play next format. So the question essentially becomes, is it going to have more than 240 HP? Because if it's got 240 HP or less, then a Zoroark with a full bench and a double colourless energy will be able to get a one-hit KO straight away. Even if it's got more than 240, if it's got 300 or less, you can whack a Choice Band on Zoroark. So you're going to have a Stage 1 that can KO this for 3 prizes for a single energy. That is very, very different. And I do find it interesting that the 2 GXs, the Tag Team GXs we've had so far, collectively have weaknesses to the 2 most played Pokemon of the previous format. Pikachu and Zekrom are weak to Buzzwole, although the only way to one-hit KO it for a single energy is if you use Baby Buzzwole, hey Nick, while having exactly 4 prizes remaining for your opponent. Then you'll do 120 for 1 energy and get a one-hit KO. This is a bit of a game changer because it's not that easy to KO Pikachu and Zekrom GX for 1 energy, but this Gengar and Mimikyu, it's going to be. I refuse to believe it's not going to have a Darkness weakness for the reasons I've outlined, so Zoroark is going to run straight through this. So it's going to have really good attacks in order to be worth playing. And I do stop to wonder whether it's going to have an ability. Now, not every Gengar that we've ever had has had an ability, but we've certainly had our fair share. Gengar Prime had an ability, and we saw that Gengar Level X had an ability, and the most recent Gengar we had with Gnawing Curse did have an ability. Of course, the worst ability we ever had for Gengar was Fainting Spell, and I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, right? That is my least favourite thing we've ever had in the Pokemon trading card game. Like, in my eyes, nothing that has ever been done in the Pokemon TCG is as bad as Fainting Spell. Fainting Spell kind of offended me in how much it sucked. Now, if we look at Mimikyu, we've only had 2 Mimikyu cards released so far. To be honest, the most relevant thing about them was Copycat, which could copy one of your opponent's attacks. Although the other one did have Astonish, which discarded a random card from their hand. We are soon going to be getting Mimikyu GX, the fairy one, link in the description, which did more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active. And the GX attack did shuffle a bench Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your opponent's deck. So certainly Mimikyu tends to have an element of disruption rolling around in here. And Gengar, Gengar's done a lot of different things over the years, but placing damage counters, that's something we've seen before. And, Compound Pain on Gengar Level X was not a million miles away from Mimikyu GX doing extra damage for all the damage counters on them, or doing damage to the Pokemon that had damage counters on them. So maybe there's going to be an element either of dropping damage counters, which they've both done, or of doing damage dependent on your opponent's damage counters. The thing is, we looked at Pikachu and Zekrom GX and we said that's amazing, it's ridiculous. And certainly, yes, it's quite expensive in terms of energy, but with stuff like Magnezone rolling around, we're not that worried. The thing is, when we look at this, it's going to be hyper vulnerable to Zoroark. So I'm really interested to see this card. Given that the sleeves have been announced, I don't think it's going to be that long till this card is revealed. Obviously, when it is revealed, there'll be a full breakdown on this channel of exactly how good it is. But since we knew it was coming, I thought it would be nice to consider what we could figure out about it, make some little suggestions based on our knowledge of previous Mimikyu and Gengar cards, and of course, have a look at what we know generally about Tag Team GXs here. Because now we know they don't all have to be basics. That's interesting to me. Certainly opens up some options. It means that Mamoswine can feature on a Tag Team GX card, whereas I was sitting here since Worlds, the opening ceremony when they were revealed, being sad we'd never had a Mamoswine. That door, ladies and gentlemen, is now open. But this is one of those videos where I need some comments from you lovely ladies and gentlemen. Give me some predictions. Tell me what you think this Tag Team GX is going to do. Go nuts. But do remember the rule, ladies and gentlemen. Be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.